Welcome to Media Melanie Talks TV. I'm Melanie, and I'm back today to talk about Grotesquerie Season 1, Episode 2. The show is continuing to go very hard in a very graphic nature to set the table for this murder mystery. And something I had heard before was my friend Jess over at Matt and Jess TV talking about whether or not this would feel like Seven, David Fincher's film. And I think it does, maybe also with a touch of The Bone Collector, but I do think Ryan Murphy is riffing off of that, given the escalation of the religious nature of these crimes, and also with the big focus on vices and sins in Episode 2. Episode 2 is titled True Crime Catholics, and we really dig into the Catholic of it all. We'll get into that in a minute. But before we do, does this also feel a little bit like American Horror Story? I kind of think so, not in a bad way, but it is very Ryan Murphy. And we'll see if this season can sustain itself and really keep with these hard-hitting, graphic, and gruesome punches. And hopefully, we're going to eventually see Travis Kelce. We did not see him yet in Episode 2, and I am dying to see what exactly unnamed role he is playing. So still standing by for Travis Kelce. Now, this episode opens and we see a lot of Lois's family drama. We meet her husband, Marshall, played by Courtney B. Vance, and we learn that he's no peach. In fact, he's an adulterer, and Lois has people on the lookout for him to catch him cheating and let her know. So he's not a good guy. She's also struggling with some stuff. She is very much an alcoholic, and their daughter Merritt also struggles with food issues. So I do think they're using all of these vices as a way to play off of these 7 deadly sins. I mean, we're kind of talking about gluttony, sloth, and lust, and it does seem as though this killer is taunting Lois in some way, although I haven't really seen those dots being connected yet. So also staying tuned to see more as to why Lois is potentially being taunted and who's involved. I mean, I said in the first episode, I don't trust this nurse. She's giving Nurse Ratched vibes. And after watching what she was doing to Lois's husband and the way that she is stepping up head to head with Lois, it's a little bit much. I do think the nurse seems very over the top sinister. It seems like they're setting that up so much that I don't think she can be a part of this, although perhaps there is some kind of a tie-in. That scene between the nurse and Niecy Nash-Betts, I do pick up on a little bit of overacting from Niecy Nash-Betts. Now, I have not watched a lot of her shows before. I know she's a comedian. I know she's also been in another Ryan Murphy show, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, which I did not finish. But I get these moments when I sense she's trying a little bit too hard to be this hard-edged alcoholic detective. I think she could dial it down a couple of notches, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes. I am really curious to see how other elements of her personal life do bleed into this investigation and how it all ties together. It's still very early on and we don't know, so there's lots of room to see where exactly this plot goes. I think what stuck out the most for me across these 2 episodes so far is Sister Megan and a new character we met, Father Charlie. She does not seem like a nun. He definitely does not seem like a priest. How often do you find members of the Catholic Church sitting around eating a casual meal, talking about their favorite serial killers? What? And to have a favorite serial killer and have it be Ed Gein of all of them? I've watched some of the Ed Gein show on Max. I've listened to a Morbid podcast, one of my favorite true crime podcasts about Ed Gein. He is one of the most alarming serial killers out there, and there are a lot. So for that to be a favorite among church members, I am so confused. And I do think Father Charlie does not seem like a typical priest. He obviously has some things going on, as we saw in this episode, but I do think it's also too early for them to be setting him up to be involved in this. It would, in fact, make sense. We hear at one point during this episode using hatred as a force for good. And could that be a justification for a member of the church to use this hatred against all of these sinners for good by eliminating them? I don't think murder is ever good, no matter what the justification is. I just can't picture him or Sister Megan actually being involved, same as the nurse. But again, who knows what kind of web Ryan Murphy is weaving here. And can I just say, I did not appreciate Father Charlie calling out Sister Megan for stealing a French fry and citing that it is in fact theft, which is against the Bible. Come on, it's just a French fry. You guys are literally talking about serial killers. Let the fries slide, please. Can we also talk about the juxtaposition of a murder board with a big giant cross as the focal point? I realize this episode is called True Crime Catholics, and there was not a more visual true crime Catholic scene in this than the murder board with the cross at the center of it, perhaps aside from the Last Supper murder scene. Actually, both were pretty striking. But the fact that that murder took place in a church, the victims were all unhoused people who were trying to be eliminated for whatever sins that they have committed. The stunned silence of the police, the crime scene people, Niecy Nash-Betts, and then Sister Megan, who just strolls into another crime scene, all sitting there watching this. It was pretty striking, and there is definitely an escalation here. A lot of creepy things happening. The show is going so hard with the graphic nature of it all, leaning into the deadly sins. And I am very excited to see where this goes. But my biggest question is, who the fuck is Travis Kelce going to play? It's been 2 episodes. We have not seen him. I'm hoping we get a glimpse of him soon. He is in an unnamed role. I also read an article that some of the cast, or most of the cast in Grotesquerie, don't actually even know what happens at the end. So does that mean that maybe he's the murderer and this is all one big thing being kept under wraps? I guess we will have to wait and see. Overall, I think the first 2 episodes are off to a very strong start. This is really good timing for spooky season, and we've got more spooky shows coming out next month as well. Of course, we've got Teacup with Luciano LaRue and Scott Speedman and Yvonne Strahovski coming out on Peacock October 10th. Just had a chance to talk to Luciano LaRue from Yellow Jackets over in the Yellow Jackets Hive. I will be covering Teacup here on my channel, and we'll play some of those clips from our Luciano interview, so stay tuned for that. And speaking of other Yellow Jackets cast, Ella Purnell is starring in Sweet Pea, which debuts on Starz on October 10th. So there's a lot of good shows coming out next month. American Horror Stories with Ryan Murphy coming out on October 15th. So Grotesquerie is really on brand right now for this time of year, which would typically be when American Horror Story is airing. So I'm curious to know, what do you think about Grotesquerie so far? I've enjoyed the setup for the murder mystery, and it is definitely a mystery. I do think, as I mentioned, Niecy Nash-Betts, maybe a little bit of overacting at times, but hoping she catches her groove. There's just some of these characters, though, right? Like I mentioned, Sister Megan, Father Charlie, the nurse. What is up with them? There is just something off. Could all of these people in Lois's life be somehow working together on this crime? Again, it seems very unlikely, especially establishing suspects this early in the season. I would imagine we've got a lot more drama that will unfold. And if they're already escalating this much in episode 2 with the graphic nature of these religious crimes, I'm almost scared to see how hard they go and where it ends up once we do get to the end of this season. So stay tuned. I will be here talking about Grotesquerie. Be sure you're subscribed to MediaMelanieTV.com. And thanks for watching. Media Melanie, clicking off.